Okay, good morning and welcome to the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television. My name is Aishwarya Kapoor. Let us start with the headlines. Cabinet decision on new minimum support price regime for Kharif crops today. Government likely to announce support prices at 1.5 times the input cost for farmers. Government beating violence with development, says Prime Minister Modi, adds governance and accountability its only goal in Jammu and Kashmir, asserts infrastructure and social empowerment push bringing down violence in Maoist-affected areas. Supreme Court verdict on who controls Delhi likely. Arvind Kejriwal government had challenged Delhi High Court verdict holding Lieutenant Governor as the administrative head of national capital. 5 killed and 3 others injured in landslides on the Baltal route of the Amarnath Yatra. Rescue operations to evacuate over 1,500 stranded on Kailash Mansarovar pilgrims in Nepal underway. Over 300 pilgrims rescued, 2 pilgrims dead. And England overcome World Cup penalty shootout jinx, beat Colombia 4-3 to book their seat in the FIFA World Cup quarterfinals. Sweden also makes it to the last 8 for the first time in 24 years, beating Switzerland by a solitary goal. Our top story this morning, the Union Cabinet will meet this morning to decide on several crucial matters. The Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs is likely to approve the support price for Kharif crops. The Cabinet may also raise the minimum support price sharply by 200 rupees to 1,750 rupees per quintal to ensure that the farmers get at least 1.5 times of the production cost. Among the 14 Kharif crops, the maximum hike in the MSP is likely to be in the case of Ragi, which is expected to be increased by 900 rupees to 2,700 rupees per quintal for the 2018-19 crop year. This after the Prime Minister's announcement last week that the Cabinet will approve the increase in MSP in the forthcoming meeting. The Cabinet is also likely to take a call on a bill seeking to seek up DNA data banks across India to store profiles. Once approved, the DNA bill will be now introduced in the Parliament in the upcoming monsoon session. Niti Aayog Vice Chairman Rajiv Kumar on Tuesday said that the country's GDP growth will touch 8% next year. Addressing a press conference in the national capital, he described the Niti Aayog as neither a think tank nor a successor to the Planning Commission of the UPA era.
Niti Aayog Vice Chairman Rajiv Kumar on Tuesday asserted that the global economy has recovered from the trade crisis. Addressing the media, he exuded confidence that economic reforms like GST will help India grow at 8 to 9% in 2022, which currently has a growth rate of 7.5%.
I think because of all these reforms and all these measures that have been taken, we are now on the cusp of a major sustained and ongoing recovery. I think we will shift now from a 7.5% growth next year to 8 and above. And this is, I want to couple this with an announcement, which is that the Niti Aayog, it has been mandated to do so. We are coming out with the strategy for New India 2022. This has already been prepared and has been sent to the draft has been prepared and has now been sent to the chief ministers for their comments, which will be, of course, duly incorporated with all the attention. And
Kumar also noted that there has been ample employment generation in the past 4 years.
Debate based on sketchy and piecemeal data, I think does nobody any good. Just to end by saying that I cannot emphasize more the fact that there has been ample employment generation in the last 4 years, as has been reflected in the states and the provinces claiming this employment generation already.
Replying to a query on disinvestment of Air India, the Vice Chairman further said, the government is committed to turn around Air India and run it professionally. Speaking on the fate of the rupee, Kumar said there was no need to worry about its values as it is still overvalued in terms of real effective exchange rate. Pajaran Mishra's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that the centre's goal in Jammu and Kashmir is good governance, development, responsibility and accountability. In an interview to Rajya magazine, the Prime Minister said that recurrent terror attacks that were common under the UPA rule are history now. He also said that the government has appointed an interlocutor to hold a dialogue with all the stakeholders. He commended the brave and eternally vigilant security forces for ensuring peace in the valley. And speaking on Maoists in his interview to Swarajya magazine, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that the approach of the NDA government is to devote unparalleled resources towards the development of areas that are prone to violence. Prime Minister Modi asserted that Maoist violence has declined by 20% in the affected states. He said that there has been a 34% reduction in deaths related to Maoist violence in 2017 as compared to 2013. He said that his government is focusing on a massive push to infrastructure and social empowerment in Maoist-affected regions. The Prime Minister said that 44 of the 126 districts have been removed from the list of Maoist-affected areas. He said that the security situation in the northeast has also improved tremendously. He said that 2017 saw the lowest insurgency-related incidents and casualties among civilians and security forces in the last 20 years. He said that the government was leaving no stone unturned to protect the people of the northeast. The Prime Minister also reiterated that his government wants to bring back misguided youngsters to the mainstream. And Home Minister Rajnath Singh and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval are visiting Jammu and Kashmir for 2 days from today. A Home Ministry official said that the Home Minister will take stock of the security situation in the state, which is currently under the Governor's rule. The Home Minister and the NSA will have meetings with Governor N.N. Bora, top officials of the administration and the security agencies. This is Home Minister Rajnath Singh's first visit to the state of Jammu and Kashmir after the imposition of a governor's rule on 20th of June. Home Minister Rajnath Singh will also visit the cave shrine of Amarnath during his 2-day visit. Meanwhile, 5 Amarnath Yatris have been killed and 3 have been injured as a landslide hit the Baltal route on Tuesday night. Police officials revealed that 4 men and a woman was killed in the landslide between Rail Patri and Brani Marg, and 3 others were also injured. The rescue teams were immediately pressed into action in the Ganderbal district of Jammu and Kashmir. The bodies have been brought to the Baltal base hospital. The identities of the deceased and the injured were not ascertained till late last night. And early on Tuesday, 3 pilgrims, including 2 from Andhra Pradesh, died en route to the holy cave shrine of Amarnath in South Kashmir Himalayas due to various causes. Meanwhile, 5 flights have arrived in Simikot in Nepal to rescue the stranded pilgrims of the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra. Earlier on Tuesday, 308 Indian pilgrims were evacuated from Simikot region in Nepal. Rescue work has intensified to bring back over 1,500 Indians who have been stranded in Nepal's mountainous regions while returning from the Kailash Mansarovar pilgrimage in Tibet. The pilgrims have been stranded after heavy rains caused landslips along the route of the yatra. The Indian mission, in liaison with the local airport authorities and flight operators, operated 7 commercial flights to evacuate the pilgrims. Meanwhile, the Indian embassy informed that 2 pilgrims, each from Kerala and Andhra Pradesh, died due to high-altitude sickness in Simikot and heart attack in Tibet, respectively. Over 1,000 pilgrims are still stranded in Simikot and Hilsa in Nepal, and another 500 near the Tibet side. On to some other news now. The centre has directed the social media platform WhatsApp to immediately take steps to prevent the spread of irresponsible and explosive messages. The government's warning to WhatsApp comes in the wake of a spate of incidents involving lynching of people following a fake and motivated messages being circulated. The centre has informed WhatsApp in no uncertain terms that it cannot evade its responsibility, asking it to contain the spread of such messages through application of technology. The centre has conveyed its deep disapproval to the top brass of WhatsApp. WhatsApp on its part has said that it doesn't want its services to be used to spread harmful and misinformation and believe that this is a challenge that the companies and societies should address together. The government is planning to call a meeting of the social media platforms to address the issue. The date of the meeting is yet to be decided. Remember, last week, 5 people were lynched in Dhule district of Maharashtra on the suspicion of them being part of a gang of child lifters. In a similar incident in Tripura recently, 2 people were lynched and 6 others were thrashed. In Assam also, a similar case of lynching was seen last month on similar grounds. Remember, India is the largest market for WhatsApp with over 200 million users. Big story that is likely to make headlines through the day today. The Supreme Court is likely to pronounce a crucial verdict on the Delhi power tussle. The verdict will be on a batch of appeals that have been filed by the Delhi government challenging the High Court's order holding the Lieutenant Governor as the administrative head of the national capital. A 5-judge constitution bench headed by Chief Justice Deepak Mishra had reserved its verdict in December last year. The Aam Aadmi Party government has argued before the apex court bench that it possessed both the legislative and the executive powers. It also called for a harmonious interpretation of Article 239A of the Constitution dealing with the powers and status of Delhi. The centre had contended that the Delhi government cannot have exclusive executive powers as it would be against the national interests. It referred to the 1989 Balakrishnan Committee report that had dealt with the reasons for not granting status of a state to Delhi. Now, during the arguments, the apex court had said that it would only lay down the principles on the status of the national capital under the Constitution and not deal with issues arising out of individual notifications issued by the Delhi government. And the Supreme Court on Tuesday pulled up a West Bengal Election Commission for a large number of uncontested seats in the Gram Panchayat elections that were held in the month of May. The apex court asked the EC to provide exact figures about the number of no contest seats by today. The Supreme Court said that a large number of uncontested seats suggest that Chapter 9 of the Constitution on grassroots level democracy is not working. The EC is expected to compute the data on non-contested seats and file an affidavit in the Supreme Court. And in breakfast news, we'll take a very short break. We'll be right back with more news. Don't go anywhere.
The biggest sporting event on earth. Top teams competing to be crowned the world champion. Expert opinion, news from the training camps. Analysis of matches with our in-house experts.
Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha TV's coverage of the FIFA World Cup.
RSTV brings you all the news from the FIFA World Cup every day at 7 p.m.
Art arisen from a multi-hued cultural canvas. Tradition and cultural fervour dating back centuries. And encircling them all, there's a magic that awes. Embrace your nation's brilliant human warmth. Watch Colours of India, Sundays at 9:30 p.m. on Rajya Sabha television.
Ghatam, one of the oldest and most unique percussion instruments of southern India. You can play it not only with your fingers, but palms, wrists and heels as well. You'll be surprised, but the air inside the Ghatam reverberates, creating the musical notes. 5 elements of nature: earth, water, air, fire and space make up the composition of this beautiful musical piece, which has found an apt place in most of the ancient books.
Welcome back after the break. Well, after more than 2 decades, as many as 32,876 people belonging to the Bru community will be repatriated from Tripura to Mizoram. The Home Ministry said on Tuesday that this is happening following a tripartite agreement signed by the 2 state governments and the centre. The pact was also signed by the Mizoram Bru Displaced People's Forum in the presence of Home Minister Rajnath Singh, Tripura Chief Minister Biplav Dev and Mizoram Chief Minister Lal Thanwala. The displaced people belonging to 5,407 families currently living in temporary camps in Tripura will be repatriated to Mizoram before 30th of September this year. And in some interesting piece of news, India's first adherent multi-wavelength space observatory has captured an image of a special galaxy cluster that is 800 million light years away from Earth. Now, this galaxy cluster is formed of 3 separate clusters that are all merging with one another to form a single massive cluster in the future. The 3 merging clusters contain more than 500 galaxies, and the cluster is among 100 times larger and more than 1,500 times voluminous as our own galaxy. However, the cluster contains galaxies spread over a large area. Astronomers zoomed in on 6 of these galaxies to capture ultraviolet images. Meanwhile, ISRO says that the merger is exceptionally well studied, where the galaxy cluster has produced a rich diversity of structures that have imaged in radio wavelengths by every radio telescope in the world. Our top international focus now. Former Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak is set to be charged in a court as part of its investigations into how billions of dollars went missing from the state fund that he had founded. 64-year-old Najib Razak was arrested at his home on Tuesday, less than 2 months after losing an election. And the former premier spent the night in the lockup. Media reports said that Malaysia's Attorney General will lead the prosecution against Najib Razak, and he is likely to face multiple charges. The charges are expected to be in connection with how $10.6 million went from SRC International Fund into Najib Razak's personal bank account. Najib's spokesperson has termed the probe as politically motivated. And now let's get you all the action from the Football World Cup in Russia. All right, so Sweden reached the World Cup quarterfinals for the first time in 24 years after 1-0 win over Switzerland in St. Petersburg on Tuesday. Striker Forsberg fired home to give the Swedes a 1-0 victory over Switzerland in the last 16 ties, securing his side a place in the second knockout round for the first time since 1994. Well, Sweden began the match against Switzerland on a positive note as they attacked the Swiss defence well, and the first half saw a plethora of chances missed by both the Sweden and Switzerland as it ended goalless at the end of the first half. And then Forsberg's goal in the second half proved to be the difference for Sweden in the last 16. Switzerland's Michael Lang was sent off in the injury time for a last-ditch push on Martin Olsen, and the referee downgraded his penalty to a free kick on the edge of the area, but the game was already up. And in the second match of the day yesterday, England edged Colombia 4-3 on penalties to book a quarter-final clash against Sweden at the World Cup. The 3 Lions advanced to the World Cup quarter-finals on penalties after a 1-1 draw with Colombia on a dramatic evening in Moscow on Tuesday. Harry Kane fired England ahead with his tournament-leading 6th goal just before the hour in Moscow, converting a penalty after he was hauled down by Carlos Sanchez at the corner. Now, England looked to be heading into the last 8 in the regulation time until Mina equalized with a 93rd minute header, the Colombian defender scoring for the 3rd game in a row. With the score tied at 1-1, neither team could find the advantage in the extra time, and so the match went into the penalty shootout, which England won 4-3. Now, with the result, England has halted a run of 5 successive shootout defeats at the major tournaments, and this being England's first knockout win at a major tournament since 2006, when it beat Ecuador at the World Cup before falling to Portugal's on penalties. All right, we have with us Jyoti and Burette, a former national football player, joining us in the studio. A very good morning, Miss Burette. So everyone expected England to lose because, England always loses when it goes to penalties. But, it was a kind of curse that probably was there in 1990, 96, 98, 2004, 2006, 2012. But this was different this time.
It was different and a different result for England. I'm sure they're happy that they've finally broken this curse. I think their coach, Gareth Southgate, made it a point in his interviews. He also mentioned that he didn't put the pressure of the past on these players. What had happened. And for these young players, it was a fresh slate. So them going into the shootout, it was positive and they came out on top, and hats off to them for keeping that mental strength.
Yes, absolutely. And but the match we saw yesterday was not also without its share of controversies as well, because we saw that Barrios appearing to throw his head into England midfielder Henderson's chest kick that was near the Columbia box, and that also invited a lot of controversies. Why he was given a yellow card.
Yeah, a very rough game, I would say. I think the Colombians were particularly rough. A lot of fouling, not a great game to watch, especially that headbutt. I mean, I think that should have been a red card, and the referee should have asked for VAR on that. Yes. But he got away lightly with the yellow card.
Absolutely. And in the second Sweden versus Switzerland match, of course, Switzerland gave their all, but I guess Sweden was solid at the back throughout the match.
Sweden looked the better team, they were playing better, defensively much better organized. Switzerland they had a lot of chances, only 4 shots on goal. So the Swedish defense was really good yesterday, and they deserve that win, and it's a great achievement for them. No big stars in their team, yes, but to come through to the quarterfinals is a big achievement.
Absolutely, and Sweden also making sure that, Switzerland's star player Shaqiri was well contained throughout. But looking at both the matches yesterday, there's still plenty of, it seems, question mark over VAR, because we have got a lot of decisions correct at the World Cup, but sometimes the stoppages are a little bit too long, and we have seen both the positives and negatives, in fact, which was seen in both the games yesterday.
Yes, VAR has its drawbacks. I think there are a couple of things that need to be addressed after this tournament regarding, the center referee going in and asking for VAR. I feel that's something that should be just told to the referee by the VAR officials. So it's taking up a lot of time. It's also helping the game sometimes because it gives you a vital penalty that changes the game. But there are things that need to be tweaked with VAR.
Absolutely, but this is FIFA's first stint with the VAR, and I'm sure in the subsequent tournaments we'll see a lot of changes ahead, a lot of tweaking ahead with this VAR. But of course, as far as matches are concerned, we will see the round of 8 begin on Friday, and England of course is going to be up against Sweden in the round of 8. Thank you so much, Ms. Burette, for joining us this morning and sharing all those views and perspectives on the matches yesterday. On to some cricket news now. India began their England tour on a resounding note, winning their opening T20 international by 8 wickets yesterday. We saw Kuldeep Yadav's magical spell of wrist spin, which was complemented by KL Rahul's dazzling stroke play. Kuldeep took 5 wickets, conceding only 24 runs in the 4 overs. And is bowling restricting England to a below par 159 for the loss of 8 wickets. And in reply, it was the turn of opener KL Rahul, who smashed his second T20 international 100, scoring 101 runs in just 54 balls. India chasing the target in 18.2 overs. He added 123 runs for the second wicket with Rohit Sharma. It was the Indian captain who finished the match with a 6. And the Indian Olympic Association has announced a 524-member contingent of athletes for the Asian Games in Indonesia. The event will be held from 18th of August to 2nd of September. The contingent comprises 277 men and 247 women athletes. The athletes will have the highest number of representation, with 52 eyeing for medals. The IOA has decided against sending the men and women football teams this time, as they are ineligible under the existing criteria set by the Olympic body. And in Wimbledon, former champions Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic wasted little time getting to the second round at the Wimbledon. We saw world number 1 Nadal won the first match that he has played since June's French Open triumph, as he beat Israel's Dudisela 6-3, 6-3, 6-2. And Djokovic also showed some of the form that took him to the Queen's finals, as he won 6-3, 6-1, 6-2 over Tenny Sankerson. And in the women's singles, the two-time champion Petrova Kvitova and former winner Maria Sharapova both suffered surprise defeats in the first round. 8th seed Kvitova never looked comfortable against world number 50 Sansnovich of Belarus, who won 6-4, 4-6, 6-0. And in the other upset, we saw qualifier Daitychenko coming up from a set behind and a 5-2 down to defeat Sharapova. 6th seed Caroline Garcia from France also went down. And but the last year's winner Gabrielle Muguruza made a solid start to the defense of her title with a 6-2, 7-5 win over British wildcard Naomi Brody. There was also an easy win for top seed Simona Halep. And in the news from badminton, Indian shuttlers H.S. Pranoy, Sameer Verma and Saina Nehwal have advanced to the second round of the Indonesia Open tournament in Jakarta. H.S. Pranoy scored a bit upset, beating 8th ranked Lin Dan of China 21-15, 8-21, 21-14. Verma's grab pass Rasmus Gemke of Denmark 21-9, 12-21, 22-20 in the other men's singles match. And in the women's singles, Saina Nehwal beat her Indonesian opponent Dinar Dia 21-12, 21-12. However, it was curtains for women's doubles player of J. Meghna and Purvish S. Ram. And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Breakfast News. Thanks for watching.